Here we are, mate. The third and final part. I haven't seen a better trilogy than this in a long, long time. But there are two things that are getting me up and about. Geez, I'm looking sharp today. And let me tell you, footy's back. Practice games or no practice games. There's footy on our screens, and I'm loving it.
Absolutely, mate. And we are in for a treat tomorrow, going down to watch Hawthorn versus Collingwood in Morwell. So it's going to be a great day at the footy. It's been a long time since I've got down to a professional footy game. So I'm really looking forward to it.
And in the 9 years that we've known each other, it's the first game we're actually getting to, together, going down. We caught up at the Hawthorn Port, Sean Burgoyne's 400th game. We caught up there, which was fantastic, but heading down there, mate, it's going to be a treat. But I'll tell you what else is a treat. We've got 10 draft nuggets here that we're going to go through. And what is a draft nugget, you may be asking? Well, ADP seems to be the draft talk of the summer, mate. And we're going to look at everyone 150 or higher and letting you know how to sort through, if we're being honest, the gems from the crap, if we're being honest. And sometimes you just got to be brutal. But these are the guys that we're going to be taking a look at in all of our draft leagues that we are doing and hopefully get the people involved. And speaking of, mate, right there on the screen, that is the draft code, date, time locked in, 13th of March, 2 p.m. It's Big Dazzling's birthday, and I'm going to be looking forward to the beautiful gift of winning the league. So get involved if you can. If you can't make the day and later on, just drop out. That's fine. And just keep an eye on the league. If you can get in, awesome. And we will go from there. The league order won't be decided until I start live streaming, which will be at about 1:55 p.m. And then I'm just going to click randomize order once, and that's going to be the order. So we can just deal with it there. But all that boring stuff out of the way, Smithy. Let's get stuck into it with our first nugget. We're going to go lowest to highest in terms of ADP. Looking forward to it. And this is a really interesting one for me. Marc Pittonet at 158. The only reason why he's on this list is he is the R1 for his club, and he's so far down, especially if you're running a 2-ruck structure. His relevance only goes up and up and up for me.
Yeah, and he's actually quite consistent. I actually had Pittonet in one of my draft teams for quite a stretch last year, and he was consistently getting, between 80 to 100, cracked the ton a few times. So for someone at R2, if you go hard early in the rucks and get a Grundy or a Gawn, if you can have Pittonet next to him, who you know is just going to be consistent, then you're looking really good in the ruck department.
And we'll talk about the bench when it comes to the rucks as well. But if you can get, a ruckman, maybe like a Max Lynch, someone at Hawthorn, maybe a fringe ruck to sit on your bench as well, Pitto is going to be fine. And he doesn't have soft tissue injuries. He's having luckless injuries. And there are a lot of players due for luck. So best wishes to Pitto. This man came second in his team's best and fairest last year, mate, and he's one of your favourites. And we might need some defenders in our teams because guys like Lukosius are playing forward and some other guys have got a few injuries, but you're very, very happy with the consistency of one Wil Powell.
Everything has gone its way this preseason on a personal level. Jack Bowes got injured, which frees him up for the role. Jack Lukosius is being moved forward, so it means he could be the man off halfback, getting the footy and delivering the ball. He's improved his average every year he's been in the AFL. His average took a 15-point leap last year. I don't expect it to be that drastic this year because he did average, I think, 82 or around that mark last year. So, but I expect him to be at least 90 plus. And if you're getting that at pick 178, that's going to go a long way to being very competitive in your league.
It genuinely is. And no disrespect to Oleg Markov, but I know who I'd rather have the footy in hand kicking inside 50 as well, which is what the Suns are going to need without Ben King. They're going to become a lot more accurate by foot. Hopefully, let's move on to a man I love. Speaking of blokes that can kick the footy, this man burst onto the scene. He's got the best first name in footy, Errol Gulden. This man has taken over the hearts of a lot of football people. He reminds me of Zach Butters in the sense of he's not a guy that you're going, once he gets into the midfield, he'll score. He was scoring tons on a half-forward flank against Brisbane at the Gabba. This is insane stuff. He's only going to get better. He's been good this preseason, 180. That's a steal for a guy that fully fit can string together scores of anywhere between 80 and 100. He might be a guy that gets you, with a trade piece with someone else, maybe get you a premium, or sit him on your pine, and if you get an injury, if you take a punt on a stringer, or if you take a punt on a wingard who isn't playing in the practice game tomorrow and he's easing his way into preseason, there are a lot worse options at higher DPPs than Errol Gulden at 180. I love this so much. He is my smoking gun that I am revealing to everyone, so he's not that much of a secret anymore, but I love it.
Yeah, well, everyone frothed him in Classic last year, and he's only going to improve on that. You'd think he's got another preseason under the belt, more established in his role, a bit more mature. So, yeah, at 180, it's a massive steal.
It's not very often that a Hawthorn fan has to apologise to Geelong, mate, but I had to do it when a few months ago I had to release my all underrated team in the AFL, and I left this man off it, and it was criminal for two reasons. One, he is a genuine young gun, and two, I had him in my draft team last year and still didn't give him the respect, but I'm giving it to him now. Jack Henry is a walk-up best 22 player. He's going to average 80 to 85. Again, we're not telling you to pick these guys in the third and fourth round, but just look at how many players you're drafting. If you're drafting 22 or 26 players and you're looking at D6 or your bench, Jack Henry is a D6, is very, very solid. I'd argue even D5 option. Fantastic option. That's what these Nuggets are for. And like we say, mate, there are plenty of players around the ADP mark that are just not worth going near. He's got a permanent role in that side and he's got a good pair of hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of these people that we're mentioning, your average player in your draft league isn't going to be aware, or they're not going to realize the potential that these players have. So they're not going to go for them a few rounds earlier than their ADP. They'll probably be right around the approximate draft position. So you'll be able to pick them up pretty comfortably, I'd say.
And sure, we can all fight over, premium players, but if your opponent's M1's getting 120, but their M6 is only getting 60s, and you're getting 110 from your M1 and 80 from your M6, you're ahead anyway. This is why these late picks are so important. We're looking for a few things in the Hawthorn game, mate. Personally, one thing we will be looking at is an opposing player, this Magpies midfielder. When you turned down a 3-year deal from the Dogs and you were promised more game time and you said, no, I'm going to go do it myself, that is a chip on the shoulder. Pat Lipinski.
Yeah, the thing about Pat Lipinski is 2 years in a row at the Dogs, he averaged over 80 playing purely as a half-forward flanker.
Nuts.
And he's come to Collingwood. He's been guaranteed more midfield time. He's going to be one of the constants in that Collingwood midfield. So if you're looking for just a set and forget M5 or M6, depending on your league size, who's going to play every week, who's going to score you a consistent score, there's not many better options around the 200s than Pat Lipinski, that's for sure.
Yeah, and considering we said in part 2 that, all these Collingwood guys, they're going to have 63 blokes rotating through the midfield. He's another one that can score outside of the centre square. So you're looking at guys like Josh Dacos, the name's really good, or Tyler Brown or Callum Brown. These guys, when they get out of the midfield rotation, they're just not scoring. This man can score. I love the Pat Lipinski pick. A reason why a guy may fall, mate, might be injury, might be opportunity, but how do you discern the nuggets from the crap? They got to be able to kick the footy. This man can kick the footy. He pulled off one of the best field kicks I've ever seen. And what the shame is that he did it in an under-18 championship game. So not enough fans have seen it, but it's simply extraordinary.
Yeah, I'm sure you could find it. It's on a lot of his highlight tapes, and it is an absolute cracker. It's one of the best field kicks I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Genuinely. And it was from an under-18 kid. It's bizarre. Had a tough injury. He scored really well in round 1 last year and then got injured, I believe. So showed all the good signs. He's got everything you want in a SuperCoach friendly player. He's got the great kick, long kick, and he's probably going to take kickouts. So for someone in the 200s to put on your bench in defense, it's a high upside play with not a lot of risk attached to it.
And I'd argue that ADP climbs 50 because we spoke about Luke Ryan in the premium in part 1 and part 2, is that if Joel Hamling or Alex Pearce or Brennan Cox get injured and Luke Ryan has to play a key back role, he's the bloke that's going to benefit from it because he then becomes what we think Luke Ryan should be. So I think it's a win-win. And if he is on your pine, and Luke Ryan's okay and fully fit, is he a piece that you can move on? I think you can, because he's going to score. His 80s are going to look really flashy and pop off your screen. So you could still get value for him, even if you're looking in the trade department. Let's get to the midfield, mate, because, oh boy, the midfield benches can look a bit sparse depending on where it is. I don't really like taking Instagram pics as a look of this guy's going to break out, but I would argue if there was a 2022 AFL calendar of preseason picks, I think we found our January. Jimmy Worpel is looking unbelievably jacked. He's a best and fairest winner, as we know. Sure, his foot skills are not fantastic, but 215 is a joke.
Yeah. I am not the biggest Jimmy Worpel fan in Supercoach so far, just because his statistics when playing with Tom Mitchell are so bad. But as I said in a previous, I said it was actually a chat between me and you, so it's not on the channel. But they've got to be able to survive in the same system eventually. Worpel and Mitchell. So if he's ever going to do it, this is going to be the year. As you said, he's looking in incredible nick. That photo on the Hawthorn Instagram page, it's scary how good he's looking. So he's another one where it's pretty high reward, low risk sort of situation. You know, if you draft him at this spot and he averages 70, well, he hasn't really hurt you because you're not looking for him to be a big scorer, but he has the potential to be 90 plus. So that's all you can ask for in these late round picks.
And I know a lot of conversation has been around, is Tom Mitchell the problem? I'd actually argue it's Liam Shields. It's these guys that rotate through the midfield as the M3 at centre stoppages that actually stop Jimmy. I can understand that if he wants to be the breakaway midfielder, you look at the game against Freo. I know 2019 is when he won the best and fairest, which is 2 years ago, which can have a little bit of irrelevance. But the game against Freo, I don't think he had one contest where he went to ground. He played as a pure outside mid where he burnt off Fife. He was hitting up Mitch Lewis. He was doing all these things. I think if there's one coach that can get that out of him, it's Sammy Mitchell. This is I think where, Hawthorn are being, whether they're being underrated or overrated, we think underrated, but we're Hawthorn supporters. But if there's one guy that needs to blossom under the system, it's him. He just needs to. I don't think Hawthorn are going to trade him, but this is a guy that is uber talented. And I'm honestly more worried about his foot skills than through the midfield rotation. Hopefully, Liam Shields doesn't play as much this year and we can stick to a solid structure. Let's move on. Another Hawk. And again, the name and the injury might make you go, whoa, but this man could have won 2 Norm Smith medals, arguably. I'd really say he should have won 2013. We're not asking him to average 100, but yeah, he ain't the 247th best player in these draft halls, let me tell you. Our man Gunner Smithy. Now, we've got a lot of love for this man, so this might get a bit weird.
Yeah, one of our all-time favorites. But looking at it objectively, I'm pretty sure he's averaged 80. He averaged 80 for about 5 years in a row.
Yeah.
So even if you get 10% less than that, he's averaging 70, and he's borderline being undrafted in a lot of leagues. So, it's another one of those things, and we keep repeating ourselves, but if you draft Jack Gunston with your very last pick in the draft as your forward bench option and you're forced to play him 1 week, he could easily score 80 and you're fine. So I don't see the negative to drafting him because he's shown consistently that he can be a really valuable scorer.
And you look at games against, let's use Melbourne. So the premiership defense, Ben McAvoy is going to play more forward. Since he's going to be the tallest of the 4 forwards, he is going to need the tallest and the best defender. So you'd argue Stephen May. Jake Lever, you would argue, would have to go to the forward that gets up the ground the most. So you would argue he would have to go to Jacob Kazitsky, who was our quickest player last year, looking at I think it's Gatorade who run the speeds. So Cozzy got the quickest. So Jake Lever is going to need to stop him because Lever, contrary to popular belief, is quicker than people think he is. That means you've got Harrison Petty on Mitch Lewis because he's better in the air. So fully fit, if they play 4 tall backs, Jack Gunston's playing on Adam Tomlinson. And with all due respect to Adam Tomlinson here, I'm backing Gunners in a Supercoach standpoint in that game, and that's a premiership defensive side. He's great below his knees. He looks in fantastic shape. If he gets injured tomorrow, because this will go out Friday morning as we're on our way to Morwell. So if he does get injured, we're going to look like fools. But I'm backing us in. He's going to go 75 plus. And if that's the last spot on your forward line, if you've got a deep draft or he's a spot on your bench, you're flying. There's no downside to drafting him late. Goodness gracious me. Speaking of no downside of drafting blokes late, this man is 24 years of age, has averaged a ton before, and is getting drafted later than Jack Gunston, is out of contract at the end of the year. And if you don't think clubs are going to come looking for him, you're crazy. Put that all together in a blender and you could have a genuine M5 or M second last. How is Jarrod Berry not getting taken in the top 250? What?
Yeah. Yeah. He averaged 100 2 years ago.
Yeah. That's-
I know he was injured last year, but crikey, wouldn't you take the chance on him a bit earlier? Everything out of Brisbane is that he is going to be one of the staples in that midfield group. And I really don't understand why people aren't taking him. I'm a big Jarrod Berry fan, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but my goodness, why not just take the chance on him?
I'm struggling to formulate the words. That would be 21st round in a 12-man league. You got to be kidding me. So so he's getting taken second last. If you've got 22 players on field and you're in a 12-man league, he is the second last draft pick. Nah, that's not good enough. Now, we've talked about you need a ruck situation, mate, and we know he's a risk, but I don't see a lot of downside if you maybe take another one of his ruck counterparts, potentially. But if he plays all 22 games, he is the R1 no matter what. Braydon Preuss. Is a risk, but that's the name of the game.
That's the play, I think. I think that's the play. If you can, and this is, if I could pull this off, I won't be able to in our draft league because I got the last pick of the first round. But if I was in a position to go Grundy round 1, Flynn round 6, and then Bruce right back in the draft, and then you just rotate the Giants ruckman on and off depending on who's playing, I think that's a great strategy.
And then around mid-year, you'd have to pick up Shane Mumford as well because he'll make a comeback somehow.
Inevitably slide his way into the team. But I think that's a really good strategy. I really do, because Matt Flynn showed last year that he can score. Braydon Preuss has shown that he can score. And just having that ruckman, having the flexibility to not have to worry if one of them doesn't get named, because you've got both of them anyway. So I think that would be an outstanding play by whoever can pull that off.
And if you've got, like you said, if you've got back-to-back picks, if you're the first or the last got the last selection, and you take, if you've got pick 1, personally I would take Grundy, but if you take one of the big 4, like you said, pick 1, and then you get, there is a case to be made that even if you're getting to the 8th round and Flynn's still on the board, even if you just go Flynn Preuss and then smack out the rest of your draft with some nuggets, it is a way to go. Because if you take Flynn and someone, of our ilk that knows what's going on does take Preuss, at the end of the day, if Preuss is fit, you need to trade for him. You just do. Because if Preuss is R1, you can't play. I don't think they can play Preuss, Flynn, Himmelberg, Brander. Feel like I'm missing one because Finlayson's gone. Jesse Hogan. They've got Jake Riccardi there as well. So they've got tools.
Kieran Briggs.
I don't think Briggsy would be a ruckman. He looks a decent centre-half back kind of type in the Neefel, Briggsy. But yeah, they've got tall depth there. Whether it's great depth or not is probably its own video in itself. But yeah, if Preuss is fit, he's playing. So if you draft, there's almost an argument that you should draft Preuss before you should draft Flynn. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon that I have more confidence in Bruce. I think they trade for a reason. I think GWS would have been surprised at Matt Flynn last year, but at the end of the day, they have put the effort into bringing Preuss into the club. All reports were he was flying last preseason before his injury. So I think they're going to want to see what they've got in him. So I'd be taking them back to back if I could, just so you don't risk losing one of them.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to bench strategy, mate, and then we'll get out of here. So the most common bench strategies, at least what I've seen from Twitter, Facebook, and sort of playing around, is 4, 5, and 6. So let's start with 4. Is it as easy as going 1 defender, 1 mid, 1 ruck, 1 forward, or do we try to manipulate some DPPs if we can?
I like to play it safe and just go one of each position. And you've just got it all saved there. Especially in a small league, you can get good players for your bench. So I don't think you have to stress too much about manipulating DPP and stuff like that.
Yeah, I like it. I think the deeper the league, the more DPP comes into play. That's a mouthful. Try saying that quick 5 times. Let's get to 5. Now, I'm a big fan of going a DPP, and this is going to sound like people are going to go, no shit, but the DPP needs to involve a mid. And I also think if you've got 5 on your bench, you need to be looking at guys that maybe are not necessarily SuperCoach relevant that might end up a DPP. So with your last pick in your draft, if you take a Nick Dacos, who is he going to be ultra relevant for your draft team? Probably not. But considering the kid is probably going to get def mid, if you can get, have you got a Jack Crisp? Does Jordan Dawson get def mid? And you can make that kind of swap in your side. Swap them around. You can get Nick Dacos off your side, and you could probably get someone, with better production on your bench if you want to maneuver it that way, or just keep one of your 5 on the bench as a DPP manipulator. I think that can work out pretty well for you, considering that there's not a lot of forward DPPs that are giving me a hell of a lot of food for thought, especially on the rookie end. Maybe Jason Horne-Francis is the only one, but he's going to be the draftee that everyone in your league knows. So if you want to get him, you might not wait until the last round, depending on how deep you are. What do you think about 5?
Yeah, I'd going the one of each position, and then, as you said, a wild card DPP, sort of like a utility sort of player who you can use to maneuver different positions. And yeah, just touching on the rookies, you wouldn't believe some of their ADPs, how high they are. Yeah. I know Horne-Francis and Dacos are being drafted before a lot of the Nuggets we've spoken about today, which is wild to me.
Extraordinary. I do know, because I'm in serious SuperCoaches, and if you're not in our Facebook group, check it out. It's an awesome place full of banter and good SuperCoach conversation. There are a couple of leagues that do require you to have one rookie on field every week, and that, I think that's got a reason in it.
It's got something
which is a good rule. I like it. It makes you pay attention to the young kids and see who's coming through. Personally, I would be getting a rookie that you think he's going to play early who's a DPP. So Josh Sin, Campbell Chesser. If you can't pick up Dacos or Horne-Francis or anyone like that, you might be all right. But let's get to 6, which makes it really interesting, which is actually what we're doing for our league structure, mate. We've got 6 on the bench, so we're going to be revealing some secrets here. How do you think you'll go about it?
I think I'll be looking at just best players available. If there's 3 midfielders who I think could go really well this year and improve their value, I'll have 3 mids sitting on the bench because you can use them in trades. Yeah. And I think having the 6 on the bench, as long as you've got your bases covered with 1 on each line, I think the other 2 is just the very best player available, the player that you think could rise in value the most. And then you sort of use those assets to get better assets and work your way to your ideal team. So I'm going to be going purely best player available there.
Yeah, I like it. I think the 2 consistencies that you can find no matter how deep your bench is have a backup ruckman. Don't rely on the waiver wire is a fair way to go, considering that on our NFL and NBA app that we use, mate, we get money, we get a salary, and you can compete for it that way. It doesn't happen that way in SuperCoach. So just have a ruckman on your bench, and then if you are going to pick one position more than the other, probably take midfielders on your bench as well. They're the most expendable, and like you said, using them for trades. One more thing before we head off, mate. Do you think we need to incorporate better SuperCoach wooden spoon punishments circa NFL and NBA leagues? Personally, I think we do. I love the Macca's idea, but the one that I wanted to bring up to you is the guys who I heard it on Triple M, who the bloke had to drive from pretty much close to where we live, mate. I don't really want to reveal where we live, but close to where we live. He had to drive to Canberra, take a selfie outside Parliament House where the barricades are set up and all the freedom fighters are, and drive home. So he had to leave at 9 a.m., I think it was on a Tuesday, and he had to be back to present the photo in person by 9 a.m. the next day. So he had 24 hours to do it. That would have been a slug, but that's a fair punishment.
That is brutal. That is absolutely brutal. The Macca's one is a classic. You sort of can't go wrong with that. That's always funny. But yeah, it just stops blokes from dropping out halfway through the year. And it keeps the competition interesting. With my draft track record, I wouldn't be sweating too much at the start of the year. So I'm happy to put something pretty harsh in place and bet on myself, if you will.
Yeah, I'm more than happy for that as well. So that's it, mate. It's been a pleasure having you on. I reckon we've outdone The Hobbit in terms of trilogies, mate. I think we've put them to absolute shame. It's been a pleasure having you on. Can hopefully have you a few times during the year as a check-in. And if you've got nothing else to add, mate, I reckon we let the good people go. I think we've set them up for ultimate draft success.
Yeah, hopefully you did enjoy the content. As always, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments, or Daz can put my Twitter handle. So message me on Twitter if you have any questions. Thanks for having me, of course, Daz. It's been a pleasure. It's been a good 3 episodes, and I'm happy to come back whenever you want, mate. So let's see what the
No,
people think.
that's it, mate. Appreciate it heaps. And for everyone out there, I'm really glad footy's back. I hope you are too. If you're down at Morwell, calm the Hawks. I know it's only a practice game, but we're competitive bastards. Hope your team goes well over the weekend. Hope you don't overreact to the results. But until next time, goodbye.